Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Emily, and I'll be co-hosting this session with Marlinda. And
Oh,
this is, a special edition. We're trying a new format of just talking to people that we can collaborate with, and dive into like how we can collaborate, um, and what the inner workings are within the teams and stuff like that. So I'll hand it over to Marlinda to uh, tell us more about the yeah.
yeah, this was something that we've been talking about starting for a while. We've seen a lot of content from a lot of conversation designers and conversation design best practices in all the different verticals that we work in. But I thought, maybe it's time to start featuring some of our cross-functional partners. And I chose this role because I don't know about you, Emily. I'm used to hearing anytime we need kind of engineering or IT support, like we're kind of getting ready to do battle, like we need to fight for like our initiatives to get on their roadmap so that we can do things on our side. But when I was at Zendesk and working with Chris, and our team would bring up things to Chris, he'd just be like, oh yeah, that's cool, I'll do that in the next 2 sprints. I'm like, excuse me, did I like did
Unheard of.
that unheard of, Chris? I feel like for majority of conversation designers, which is why I thought it would be great to feature you, get you on a call and talk about like how that partnership was built, how you work. But I guess before we get into that, could you please introduce yourself, tell us like what you do in your workday to kind of give people an idea of what a solution architect does at Zendesk.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Chris Neuman. I work at Zendesk. I've been there for quite a while, and I work in the IT space. I work very closely with integrations and a lot of different systems. So the bot team and our that conversational AI team is like one of the teams I work with. So but work cross-functionally across a lot of different groups. But my specialization has historically been in data movement and getting data into various systems, which obviously is very important to bots, like informing them, getting them up to speed with the knowledge. And so for me, this has turned into like when this function kind of got spun up in the last few years and is like a much bigger part of our company. It turned into like, wow, what an exciting, like this space is doing so much cool things to help our customers or limit the number of tickets coming in because we're actually helping people. So then it like within our bots. So then it turned into okay, what more could we be doing, right? So like what else can this thing do? And honestly, it's just a relatively exciting space. Like obviously with AI and all that has become an even bigger space. So but yeah, my work, like I said, really tied to integrations, and then it really naturally turned into a space with connecting with our bot and integrations team.
So what type of team do you kind of collaborate? Do you have like a set team that you work with and then partner with others, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I think why I don't want to like put words in my business partner's mouths, but I think why people enjoy working with the way that I work is that I am kind of like the front door to IT in a lot of scenarios. Like if you want to do something within a bigger organization, there's a lot of groups in IT, right? Like you might have a CRM team, you might have a data team, you might have a whatever, like all the extra teams that may exist that you may need getting data from or information from into your system. And I think one of the things that has been super helpful for me is that since I've worked in integrations this whole time, like it's really about like building a good platform and getting really good foundations on how we move our data around so that when someone comes to me and goes, oh, I need this, I can go, actually, I got you already. We're doing that. We're already working in this way. Or a lot of it truly is just like, let me know where you guys want to be going. Like, don't tell me what you need right now. Like, let's ideate, let's get together. One of the things that I like to do in my space is I just have monthly, bi-weekly meetings with various business teams to just be like, hey, what are you guys up to? And like, even if we just like hang out and talk about how much something is a hard time right now or whatever it might be, or it's just like, yeah, we're trying to get here, we're trying to get there. And then it turns into these ideation sessions where we spend time going like, oh, have you thought of this? I can get you, or what happens is this team asks for this thing. Do you guys want that too? And then they go, oh my gosh, we would love to have that. So it's connecting the dots.
That's so amazing. We need that.
We need a Chris Neuman in every company, I swear.
Yes.
Like, how do I clone you? Because that kind of thinking is so important right now. with like all the different AI initiatives in a company, in every company, people are like, oh, let's do AI here, let's do AI here, but they're not talking together. So like you get a lot of duplicative work, and then maybe the data systems don't talk to each other, and it just becomes so difficult and convoluted. So yeah, I love the way that you think, and creating that connective tissue between the teams like that. It's so important having those conversations.
Yeah, I would love to like double down on like, yeah, this type of role, like this type of mindset should exist everywhere, because like realistically it saves everyone time, right? Like what ends up happening is everyone works in silos and no one is communicating, and then what's like then double work, or we make something bespoke for this one group, or it's an integration that only works for this team but doesn't work for this use case, right? And like by having that mindset of just being like, okay, yes, there's so many things you have to do right now. Everyone has things they have to do right now that their leaders are saying this is the number one thing. But on the back burner, you just have to be thinking about like, okay, how do I maintain the bigger picture, the foundation? And like, it's going to sound cheesy, but a lot of it's just talking to people. You just got to talk to people what they need. And like, honestly, take the time to ask them what they really need. Because sometimes they'll come to you with the orders that their leadership says, I need this. And like, if you just take 2 extra minutes to go, okay, like what's that going to do though? Or what data do you have to support that? And then you get both sides like thinking and more collaboration.
Yeah, and I guess that's like how you would say that your like all your partnerships come about. Like, curious, like who do you partner with the most when it comes to like creating conversation, like a conversational AI experience?
Yeah, I think that one's interesting because obviously, like I call them the bot team. I'm sure they have a much more beautiful, like long lasting name, but that is the team that I meet with. I meet with them twice every 2 weeks, and it's just like that's the schedule. But then there's also the ad hocs, the conversations that happen in between all the Slacks. I'm a very like, hey, if you got an idea, just shoot me a message. Just Slack away. You know, it doesn't take much for me to read it and go like, awesome, let's find some time, or let's bring that up next Wednesday. But then going back to like one of the earlier questions, like I am interfacing with that team, but then I'm going to go to a data team, a developer team, a different developer team, and wrangling all those different parts to like make it easy. Because like at the end of the day, I view it as like that bot team is the business who needs a thing. They really don't care how many different dev teams I need to make something work. I care about making that easier.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you know, I'll tell them so they have a little sympathy for me to be like, oh, thank you, Chris. Like, I know, like, and like they understand like what it takes. But they shouldn't have to care, right? Like at the end of the day, the business should be able to come with like, hey, here's what I want to achieve and how I want to do it. And then like when you are working together, it just becomes a lot easier. Like on the conversational AI side of that, it's really interesting because obviously the bot teams are the ones that are really pushing that, but there's AI in so many different parts of, especially the Zendesk product and all sorts of different tooling now. So I think a lot of different teams are trying to figure out their space and how they use it. And that's such an interesting one because there's so many, like I'm a very security minded person and like and doing all those things correctly. And sometimes the speed in which people want to go may not jive with that. But I think you could still have a happy medium to say like, hey, I totally get where you want to go, but we can't just put all of our company data into your free signed up account of ChatGPT. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's so important. And and just that they're aware of that and like that you bake that into the timeline too.
Totally.
So that's,
yeah. And I think that's a big part of it is like really setting expectations with people, right? Like, I think that these tools are so good and so powerful, and like the version that you can use at home on your personal computer or your phone is like so empowering that when you go to work, you go, why can't I do this? And you go like, I regret to inform you, infrastructure, contracts, legal agreements, like all those things are things that need to get figured out as well.
Yeah. So I was wondering, it sounds like you get brought in pretty early. Do you typically like to get involved like at the beginning and and how do you kind of let people know that like they need to reach out to you as soon as they have something?
Yeah. The one thing I would say to all the business side out there, like try to find that person in your org where you can just like give them information in advance, give them an idea of like what this thing might be coming. Like I think where a lot of these things go sideways is everyone works in a silo, and then they wait to get together and for the big formal meeting, and then they drop this gigantic project, and then everyone goes, oh my gosh, timelines, what can we do? We have no bandwidth, roadmap, all those things. Like, in my opinion, where people can be successful on the IT side is building the relationship to be brought in early. Like, the project kickoff should be like, you should know everything that's going to happen before it gets to that point. Ideally, you're having the conversations with the business, and like, honestly, I have the most success, like, you know, at all levels. Like, if you meet with the director, you're going to get like oh, this is the direction of the project. But when you meet with the person actually executing and building the thing, they're going to go, man, I don't know if we can do this, or we don't have that. And then that's where you start getting those things figured out. So you can go into those bigger projects and say like, oh yeah, we have this plan and this plan and this plan. Like, I think it really comes down to that early preparation and relationship building that makes it a lot easier to have those things. So like, to answer your question, like, as soon as possible, like honestly, I feel like I am still working on the muscle of being like, okay, yeah, let's talk about this. We're going to park it for later. But mostly because I just really get excited about like solving problems. So honestly, just come in like with some ideas. And like, that's my big thing is like, just come with a problem, right? Like, I'd love to hear your idea on a solution too, but like, I need to know like what you're trying to solve so we can say like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? And that sort of mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah. And I know it's hard because I think some organizations can be very rigid in how you intake and reach out.
Right.
And, oh, you need to fill out this TPS report and then this TPS report before you're allowed to talk to someone. And I think that can be very hard. I feel like the nice part is like, at least at my company, it is very like, no one's gonna be mad at you for like going to ask the business what they want. And so like, honestly, I know this is really like maybe focused on audiences, a lot of the conversational side, but for any of the IT side that is out there, like, I promise you, your lives will be easier by going out and just getting that information in advance and like building the relationships early, because at the end of the day, when everyone kind of understands where you're going, things just happen easier, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. And you have to have that alignment straight from, especially in a conversational AI experience, because then you can deflect, but let's say it doesn't. That information of like the topic, the intent, and where it's routed to, like that needs to be aligned and agreed upon and built beforehand. So like the next question I'd like to ask is like, what has been like your biggest frustration when creating this kind of conversational AI experience, working with conversation designers, like, or other stakeholders as you're putting this together?
Oh man, biggest frustration. I think it's just setting the expectations on what these things really do. I think I am on the outside of like, I don't do the building, like, but I spend so much time with the team. I think I understand how things work, but how things have changed is so interesting, because you go back 3 years and everything is very like flow based, right? Like, you are building a tree and you're yes, no, 3 options, you go down this huge tree. And that was like, oh wow, this is so amazing. And then now we move to AI and everything is just like, make a prompt. And then I think the frustrating part is getting people in leadership to understand that bridging that gap is a big deal. Like, the transition from one to the other is not overnight. Like, and then understanding the risk of the conversational AI, like quality, right? Like, what percentage of time does it work, right? And like, measuring that is very difficult in a lot of cases. And so people want, I would say my biggest frustration is everyone wants to be AI, but I think they may be missing the repercussions of like forcing that and going too fast.
Wait, can we double click on that, measuring the quality? Like, how do you view, like, what are your thoughts on like?
No, I think that's interesting, right? Because like, technically I would say like, oh, that's not a nice space. Like, that is the tool generate data and people should look at graphs, right? But like, I think as a person who's just like really interested in the AI space and like conversations, and like, realistically, I don't want to build something that, I don't mind building something that doesn't work, because that's okay. Like, you should try, you should fail forward and do new things, right? But I also want to have the data in place to be like, yeah, was this successful, right? Did this do what we wanted to do? And I think sometimes people are ready to jump into it without that. And then then what do you have, right? You have a thing that you go, everyone says, oh, it's a great success, even though it may not be true, right? Or you may not know that. And then at the end of the day, that hurts the customer. Like that doesn't hurt anyone but the customer, right? Like if they have a bad experience or some wild hallucination happens in their scenario. So I am a very data. I mean, I think a lot of IT mindset, right, is very data focused. And so I guess that's my ask on the business side is really just like, yeah, like what is the measure? What are you going to do? How is this going to work? And if honestly, if it comes down to we don't know, we're going to find out. That's a cool answer for me too, right? Like if the experiment is figuring out how to get the data, that's awesome, right? Like everything doesn't have to be so rigid up front.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like specific metrics that you track personally that with your involvement in these projects, or is that separate from what they measure? Or
yeah, I think on my side, the metrics I probably should be tracking is usage of the things we build for these teams. I think we do an okay job of that. I think sometimes I'd be the first one to say I do get very excited about an idea and say, yeah, let's go, let's figure it out. And then we start building that thing. I think it really comes down to the things that I would track would just be like, hey, if we're going to build this thing, how long did it take to build that? And what was the value of it? And I think those are the things that we need to make more clear on the IT side to the business side. It's like, hey, this is a cool experiment you want to take, but like for us to do that, it is 6 months of infrastructure to get there. And then if we don't have a good answer as to why we're doing it, then that project's not taking off, right? As much as I could try to make it happen, it is really just working on the like, I don't know, I don't want to say it's like the politics side of it, but it really is just like the like, hey, what do you guys want to accomplish and how can we really say that this is worth the effort, right? And so I think those are the metrics that really come out of it. Like, yeah, and we end up getting a lot of business metrics that are like, oh, X number of tickets deflected and all these things, which are really great because I think those tell like the big picture of the story. But from the IT side, it really comes down to how long will it take to build? Is it worth building? And did we build it in a scalable way? Are like the things that we would come down to like my leadership asking me those questions, I guess. Yeah.
Of course. And I'm wondering, like, when you're partnering with these teams, how do you manage conflicting priorities between like what's technically possible and what they're envisioning?
Yeah.
We want the world. Everyone's always asking about the world.
Yeah. No, like that's a daily struggle. You know what I mean? Like especially in this space where it's so new and like, I mean, I go back to like when like blockchain was the hot new thing and everyone's just like, how do we use blockchain and everything? So then leaders come to you with like, how do we do that, right? And I feel like AI is in this space right now, but it's actually useful, which is pretty cool. And so it is a struggle, right? Because there's a lot of different things that need to be done. And I think what is helpful for me is just working so closely with the business to be like, hey, let me know your goal and then let's find like milestones to get there, right? Like we're not gonna get there in one leap. We need to say like, what if we did this first, if we did this next, if we did this next, and then through those phases you're going to identify, like you're going to learn, you're getting more data, you're going to identify, oh, actually we should pivot phase 2, we should actually do this instead. And I think getting people adjusted to that mindset, I think a lot of, depending on the company and like the space, a lot of people like to be very waterfall and be like, plan everything, let's get it done. And I try to like be a little more agile and just like try to set mindsets to say like, hey, we need to learn. We can't just assume we know everything, especially in this space. You just don't. You truly don't know anything. Everyone who's like saying, hey, I've been doing AI for so long. It's like, yeah, but it's changed so much in the last 6 months that like you need to be able to move fast. But at the same time, set expectations that things take a while to dev sometimes. Like I know we live in this wonderful world of vibe coding. Everything's so fast, but like from the IT side, like I can be a little more realistic in saying, yes, I think those tools really do help people and can make things go faster, but you still have a lot of process. You still have a lot of security reviews, code reviews, architecture reviews, and like setting the expectations that all those things need to happen. And you don't want to temper anyone's excitement about it, right? Like if someone's excited about something, like the last thing you want to do is like put out their fire on it. So it's just like balancing how to set their expectations on how long things take. Yeah.
Right.
I wish people would understand, like, yeah, it takes a little bit more time up front, but if you do that little work, it'll be so much better in the long run. You'll save so much more time and money. And
Yes. And that's the thing. I get it. People want to see results right away and go
Right.
fast. And I think that's what like a lot of the space of the people who are doing the work is like, it's really on fighting for, no, it's okay. Just wait a little longer. I promise you, here's what you need to do. But then at the end of the day, you need to deliver, right? Because that's
Exactly.
what
It's tough. Yeah. Yeah.
From managing these conflicting priorities, but let's say now you're receiving requirements. Actually, how do you prefer to receive requirements and requests from teams that you work with? And in terms of like designers, do you have any tips? Like, should they be a little more technical in the documentation when handing it off to you? Like,
Sure.
what is your preference for that?
Yeah, I think like the Chris of 3 years ago might be disappointed in the Chris now of like back then it'd be very like, yeah, let's just get together, let's just talk it through, and like, I don't know, I'll put some stuff on a napkin and we'll make it happen. And now we're a little more rigid in that space now. I think we're starting to roll out a lot more templates. Personally, I do like the back of the napkin conversation still. I think those are the things, like when someone comes and just goes like, here's a spreadsheet with 15 IDs of different requirements that are just like super, super high level. I think those are really good for guidance on like where you want to be going. But at the end of the day, like I love to mesh the, I would love for someone to come with like, hey, this is my problem. This is where I want to go. Here is my big picture requirements, and then that turns into a awesome, let's work through that, let's talk through the caveats. Because I think what ends up happening is a lot of places will end up like just throwing your requirements over the wall, and then the other team goes, we can't do half of this, what do we do? And then they just like say no, and they throw it back over the wall. And then instead of just like saying like, hey, can we all just get on a meeting together really quick and like, let's just spend the time, understand where you're trying to go, understand what you're trying to do. And then I think where you can be the most successful is taking the time to like level set on expectations of like what the tooling can do, right? When you let the business know like, hey, this is kind of the space we have to work in. We can't do this thing yet, but we can do this. Then they can work in that mindset. But I would caveat that with asking them to still push the limits and say like, okay, if that's all we can do, why can't we do this? How could we do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a back and forth, right? Because if you just throw things over the wall, you just spend so much time churning through nothingness, you know? And so
Oh yeah.
it's communication, you know?
Yeah, and Nathan.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to point out Nathan's comment. A hard pill to swallow. You have to aggressively manage scope. Yep, very, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially with LLMs, generative AI, it's just like it just becomes so much more tricky and iterative even. And you just have to keep working and testing, and it's a lot more management.
Yeah. I think it's really getting people to understand that this space, you just truly have to be agile. You cannot like, you can set goals, you can set like milestones of things you want to do, but like everyone needs to be more okay with, you know, oops, things went sideways this sprint or this time frame. We need to figure that out, you know?
Exactly. So I was wondering, well, it sounds like it's a continuous conversation, but is there like a typical handoff point where you kind of
Yeah, so that's one of the things that's happening right now is we're trying to get a lot more rigid in this space to say like, hey, here are the key milestones of a project. We should have this by this point. We should have this by this point. I am still very fluid in that space of learning and trying to enforce those things. I think those conversations will still happen in the background to make those milestones successful. But I do see the value in having the milestones and saying like, yes, hey, this is a much more clear thing for leadership to understand where this is at. Like sometimes being down in the weeds is like, you know, that's not where they want to spend their time, right? They just want to know the project is moving forward. And so I do think that there is value in trying to set like, this is when we're going to have business requirements. This is functional. This is when they turn into technical, like trying to set those big tent poles into the project. But in my opinion, like the way that those actually get done is truly the like conversations, the meetings in between. So yes, I would recommend like trying to lean into having those things, one for observability and visibility to leadership, because they love that sort of thing. But if you lean into just solely waiting for that thing to be like that package to be delivered on that day, and that's the first time you're going to know what this project is about, you're going to spend more time. It's going to be harder for you to like decipher what's happening, right? Like you have to build relationships.
Yeah.
Very much so. Well, in jumping to another point of view, what is something that you wish more people understood about your role as a solutions architect and in conversational AI?
I think it's really interesting because like the architect title gets thrown on a lot of different types of roles. And I think that like solution architects versus enterprise architecture versus all these different things, that there's a lot of different variations of it. So I think just truly not assuming that one is all of them or any of them, that like sometimes they have smaller scopes or whatever they might be over, and just like understanding that hey, this is what this role is. But also like from the architecture side, I think sometimes people like to really, I mean, and depending on the, I think this is company to company as well, but like people like to just be like, oh no, this is my space, I am like this little part of the alphabet, I am like B. And it's like, oh no, sometimes you're like C and A, or like a wider range of it, right? And I would say like on both sides, it's like, hey, you need to be clear on what your business, like what your role is, like what you are bringing to the table. But then at the same time, I would push on a lot of people to say it's okay to widen the horizons a little bit. Like, yes, you may have all these other, like in some companies you have all the resources, right? You have your QA, you have your release manager, you have all these things. In some companies you don't, and you're all those things, right? And so I think being clear when a new person comes in as a business, like honestly giving them the lay of the land of your company from an IT perspective sets them up for success, right? To be like, hey, if you want this thing from this organization, here's the tickets, here's the whatever metrics we're looking for, like sharing out what your expectations are with them, versus like I feel like a lot of people just join organizations and go like, oh, it must be like my old company, and it's probably not. Like it's probably vastly different.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I feel like conversation designers also kind of like run into that issue where like I can do all these things, I can wear all these hats, but then trying to fit in into a new company where they do have a QA, so then you don't have to do that part. So it's like I feel like we're all just kind of redefining always wherever we are at what level we're at when it comes to our role.
Also tough when you are doing all of those things. It's like I can only do so many things at once. What can I, what can I prioritize?
It's hard to balance that, right? Because like I really like helping. Like I like making a problem solve. Like I understand I have a lot of people pleaser like tendencies, but you do have to like scope it back, right? And be like, okay, hey, is this sustainable? Like, and I think everyone just needs to like figure out like what their range and like how much they can put into something. But at the same time, like just gotta be nice about it. You know what I mean? Like if you can't do something, you just gotta like be honest and open. Like if you just say it up front, like, hey, that's outside of the scope of this, or this is too much, like is the value here or whatever it might be. Like you just have to figure that stuff out, you know?
Absolutely. What advice would you give designers trying to kind of build a relationship with you or start working with you?
Yeah, I think one, I'm the type of person who's like going back to like obviously work from home now, office culture, that I was the guy who's just going to get up and go talk to someone. And honestly, like take the time, ask someone to hop on a Zoom, do an intro, like figure out who your technical partners are and let them know where you're coming from. Because I think at the end of the day, I think everyone just is like trying to solve the problems that they have. But I don't know. Like I said, it comes down to relationships for me. Like if I help another team and I put in a little extra effort, when they come back with their next project and I have to go like, oh, wow, like we're not going to hit this timeline or whatever it might be, they're going to usually be like, oh, well, Chris did me that solid before. I can like be a little cooler on this one. But if you're super rigid, super, if you're just not nice to each other, that comes around, like it really does. So like, I would just say like, don't be scared to reach out, ask who the technical people are and say like, hey, here's my problem. Like, what am I missing? Right. And like meet them halfway on a lot of these things.
Yeah.
I feel like that's half the battle, is just figuring out who is in charge of what. And
Totally.
What tools are capable, because you
Yeah.
move to a different, I mean, conversation design tools, there are so many. I feel like at every company I've been at, I've had to learn. I feel like I'm a noob all over again. I'm like, okay, I was able to do that over at Zendesk, but like, what is it, this new tool that I'm using now, what is it capable of? And then how do I build that? Who do I talk to? I gotta find who that is.
Yeah, it's really interesting because like the scale is so different, because some tools are very UI focused, some are more dev heavy, some are all these different things. So like it's so hard to be like, wow, this is the template on how you build a good relationship between like these two types of teams. But I think like the general principle of just like, if you're moving into a new space, like get the lay of the land as quick as you can, figure out who can help you, use your resources, right? Because there are people who know that system or don't like know X or Y part of it, and just like taking the time to just like show me what you're doing, like help me understand. And then I get that's hard because you do have to put yourself out there in a lot of these things, but it goes back to the earlier comment, like you put in that effort right away, and then like it pays off. Like it ends up being easier down the line.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any other things you want to share? Anything that you would like people to know about what you do? And
yeah, I mean, just like in general, I like, I can get pretty long-winded on this stuff, and I appreciate everyone taking the time to listen. But realistically, it truly is just know the problems that you have, take the time to figure out your data, like the data. If you can get data around it, even better.
Yeah.
If you don't have data, be honest about that. That's totally fine too. Like if you are just riding on a vibe, like let us know that, and then we can like, because when people just like pretend all the way through, because then what ends up happening is someone just goes, I carry it forward, then someone goes, where's the data? And then I get yelled at because I don't have the data. It's like, if we all can just be honest about what we're trying to accomplish, like it goes so much further. And I get that may be difficult in different organizations and different companies, but I think that if people can just stand up and like push back on things, feel like try to feel empowered. And I know that's different per company as well. But if you can kind of show like, hey, you're asking these things because you want to move in a positive direction. You're not asking these things to be an obstructionist. Like,
of course,
that is
a
what
lot of it's like the way you frame things and just like ask people, and it's we're all just trying to get to the best experience possible. And
yeah, exactly. And like at the end of the day, like if I know your motivations, it's a lot easier for me to be like, oh yeah, you're trying to hit this milestone or hit this thing, then cool, we can like calibrate around that. But if everyone's just like, handing over their requirement sheet and just saying, okay, I hope something comes back, like, I think everyone needs to meet each other halfway a little bit.
Absolutely. I think alignment is going to be so big now. We can no longer people just do whatever they want in whatever corner of the business. No longer an option. It used to be they could do that. I feel like it's table stakes now to be aligned.
Yeah, I think one of the things I would say is like I am the person who's going to be like, hey, business, you're my new business. Let's set up some time to meet. I think from the other side, I think it's totally valid to be like, hey, is there any sort of regular cadence we should be having to making sure that we're on the same page? And that doesn't need to be like a big group. It could just be like one-on-ones or whatever it is. Like I would say from the business side, like don't be afraid to like reach out. Like when I get those messages like, oh, hey Chris, I heard you might be able to help me on this. I'm like, oh yeah, what do you work on? Like what's going on over there? And like honestly, from like an IT perspective, the more like of that web you put out there, the more you just start to see how much everything is all connected. And then you end up solving problems so much easier, right? You end up going like, oh yeah, if I built this for this team, it can be used for here and here. And then your solutions just end up being a lot more scalable. And then it's so much easier for you to go into whatever big OKR meeting and just say like, hey, I helped 2 teams and both of these things did this like X percentage of improvement, right? So just reach out, just communicate. Simple as that.
Love that. Maybe it depends. Is the
it's not like a prescription. It's more of a like move in that direction.
Yeah. This has been such an enlightening experience. I don't know about for you, Emily.
Yeah. This has been great.
Thank you so much for like giving us the time to like share about your experiences. I will say I miss our bi-weekly meetings. Wanted to throw in one last question just because I noticed your background. I was wondering if you can give the audience a little bit of your Zoom background philosophy and your art philosophy.
Yeah, Marlinda knows this because we both worked at Zendesk. My Zoom backgrounds are kind of my art since the pandemic. It felt like a way to express, some feelings and opinions on different things. And I'm very much the type of person, like, if anyone hasn't caught it, this is like the Seinfeld background. If you've watched that show, it's one of my favorite shows, Seinfeld. It is very, like, it's one of those things that's just like a weird icebreaker sometimes, because like I'll just get a Slack in the middle of like a meeting with like 40 people, and someone's like, "Is that Seinfeld?" And I'll go, "Yes, we did it. We're connected now. We're like, we're on the same vibe, right?" But then sometimes you're like having a bad week, so then you bring in like the Severance background or something. I don't know, like you just having a different way to like build connections with people,
That is so smart. I feel like as an introvert, that is such an easy way to create connection with people without putting too much effort. I love that. Oh my God.
I have this awesome it is Leslie Knope office from oh my God, Parks and Rec. And so it looks like super official and presidential or whatever, but then you'll just get this message and like, Parks and Rec. I'm like, yes, got him. I found a like-minded human being. Like, it's the same sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And this was amazing. So many great insights, and I definitely learned a lot. So
this is awesome.
Yeah, and hopefully we can continue this kind of series with like cross-functional partners. So anybody in the audience, if you can let us know what other cross-functional partners you want us to see like feature, any other questions that you might have, be happy to pass it on, and maybe we'll get Chris back on.
I would love to. This is great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.